What's up guys, Eric Vasquez here with a brand new design basics video for you today. And in this lesson we're going to be talking about font combinations. Alright, so when I talk about font combinations and pairings, I'm talking about typefaces that just go well together that you guys can use in your design work. Now it's an important topic, it doesn't have to be a complicated one, but it's something that I feel can help you guys step up your design game right away. So let's jump right into it. Now here I just have an example of one of my previous design tutorials for the Last Stand coffee shop and bakery. Now in this tutorial I walked through the process of designing and laying out this menu. And as you can see here, we've got a couple of different typefaces here. Some of them are from the same family, but some of them are just fonts that work well. Now you'll notice here up top that we have a more distressed, kind of condensed display typeface, and then we're also using this cursive typeface throughout, sort of here for the catchword, as well as some of these menu items. All right, and we're using this same display typeface here that we're using for each of the sections on the menu, but you'll notice a third typeface here that we're using for some of these more smaller descriptive pieces of text, as well as the address on the bottom. So I just wanted to show you guys this just as a quick example, so that you can kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about when I say font pairings. Now over here in this document, I've just gone ahead and set up a couple of examples to show you guys. In this first example, you'll see that I'm using this typeface called Yellowtail, along with a sans serif semi-bold typeface called Open Sans Semi-Bold. Now the majority of these typefaces are fonts that you guys can download for free. A lot of these are Google fonts, which you guys can download. There's a whole library of typefaces that you can grab there, and a lot of them are just really nice and simple and clean. But it's nice to have a couple of, script typefaces and more decorative things in there as well, just to spice things up a little bit. So in this particular case, Yellowtail is the display font. And the reason that I say that is because typically with display fonts, you don't really want to use them for the body text, as it'll be a little bit hard to read. So if I were to come in here and begin typing a paragraph, this is the body copy for your paragraph or description. Okay, and we do something like this, pretty quickly, you'll see that once I make it smaller, it's not quite as easy to read. So I think, in these cases, this one isn't so horrible, but it's much easier on the viewer's eyes if you use a simple serif or sans serif typeface like the Open Sans Semi-Bold. So in that case, you want to try to reserve your display fonts for shorter phrases, maybe just a couple of words and titles. So our second example here, we're using a slab serif, and a slab serif is just what it looks like. It's got these slabs on the ends of the letters. And a very nice font to pair that with is Railway Light. Now, it's interesting here because you can mix script fonts with sans serif fonts, lighter fonts with slab serifs, and you'll see a pattern here that we're just beginning to mix different weights, sizes, and types of fonts together. All right, in this case, for the third example, we're using Norwester, which this typeface comes from Font Squirrel, along with Roboto Condensed, which is another Google font. Now, in this case, both of these are sans serif condensed typefaces, but the weight of the display type here, the Norwester typeface, is much heavier. So it gives you a nice contrast. Now, if you've seen some of my previous design basics videos, we've talked about things like scale and contrast and balance. So all of those lessons that we've discussed earlier on come into play when you're experimenting with typefaces as well. Now, it's important to just remember to give some love to your text. It's not easy, but it's, a lot of people kind of jump in and think it's all about, graphic design is just about creating beautiful images, but the type is a big part of it too, so you don't want to neglect that aspect of your design. If you have a beautiful looking image, but the typefaces just aren't working, it's a surefire way to make your work look a little bit sort of amateurish, like you didn't really pay much attention to it. And the last thing you want is for people to think that, you just slapped something on there and that it's kind of an afterthought. Okay, so again, just continuing that theme here, we're using another typeface called Julius Sans, which is a nice lighter weight with another condensed sans serif. Now in this case though, you will notice that the tracking for this text here has been spread out a bit. And that's another important topic that I wanted to touch on. Anytime that you're dealing with typefaces like this and font combinations, it's important to remember that you have a couple of interesting devices at your disposal when you're working with text. You not only have the size of the text, you have the weight of the text, you've got the amount of space between the letters and the characters, and you've also got the amount of space that you have between lines of text, especially when you're dealing with paragraphs and body text and things like that. So these are all kind of devices and things to keep in mind anytime you're working on a layout. So these are some of the basic examples here, and I have a couple more. And in this case, you can see that we have a really nice looking display font. This one is called Le Bonjour from the Design Cuts Marketplace, which is a really nice font that comes in a couple of styles. And I'll put a link there to that so that you guys can see it. But I'm pairing that with a nice script typeface. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you may not always want to use a script typeface as, the font for your body text, but there's no reason why you couldn't add, say, a third font to this. Maybe something like Roboto Condensed could also be used here for body text. So in this case, you would have, your headline, kind of a subhead using the script, and then adding a third typeface here so that you can have this sort of, trifecta of typefaces working together. Okay? And in most cases, I would, just kind of recommend using more than one typeface. If you use one typeface in just different styles, your design can look kind of boring. But at the same time, if you use too many, it can feel like too much. So what's the right balance of typefaces and how many fonts should you use? Well, I typically try to go for somewhere between 3 to 4 typefaces tops, in a design, because like I said, if you have too many fonts happening, it can feel a little bit chaotic. So in these cases here, I'm using another slab serif with Bedoni 72 Book, which is just a nice classic serif typeface. Okay, and again, you could add almost any of these smaller fonts from the left column to this to use a third typeface that would work well. Okay, so if you, again, were designing something like the menu example I showed you in the beginning, perhaps you could use Rockwell for your title, and then Bedoni for your sections, and then this third font here for the smaller text. Okay, and then you would have your 3 fonts that you could experiment with and play around with. And once you have those fonts in place, it's good to experiment with things like the size, the color, and the weights as well. Okay, and here I have another nice display font called Appleton that we're using with a basic font, Avenir Next Demi-Bold. Now, if you've seen some of my other tutorials, you know that I love to use Avenir because it's just a very nice, clean, and simple font that's very easy to read. So I wanted to just kind of take you guys through this and give you some examples of font pairings that work really well, in my opinion. Now, you can always go online and search for, recommendations and font pairings, but one of my favorite things to do is just jump in there and begin experimenting with it myself. It's important to have a nice collection of typefaces that you can take with you. Sometimes you can even, if you're feeling adventurous, go ahead and create your own typefaces. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that. And of course, be sure to check out the Design Cuts Marketplace as well, because they do have a very nice and vast array of interesting typefaces to choose from. So hopefully you guys found this video to be helpful. I know that it's something that a lot of designers, especially starting out, can be sort of intimidated by. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why it tends to be kind of rushed. But if you're somebody who cares about creating good design and creating powerful imagery, you want to make sure to give a little bit of love to the type as well. So if you guys did enjoy this video, please go ahead and smash the like button, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to the Design Cuts YouTube channel. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Eric Vasquez, and we'll see you next time.